Hi, you've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Wednesday over here in the Atlantic. Still not a whole lot going on in this area of the world. We do have some activity in terms of cloud cover and convection, as we've had some upper troughs, one over the Gulf of Mexico and one out here over the central Atlantic, ventilating areas of the Caribbean and allowing areas of thunderstorm activity to develop. But we have had nothing sufficiently organized. As I mentioned before the weekend, we had an area of lackluster surface convergence in this area of the world, which wasn't allowing air to pile up and thunderstorms to develop in a concentrated manner. And although we had an area of low pressure develop with this tropical wave that's now over the Bahamas that tried to develop north of Hispaniola, it did not have enough concentration of energy to try to develop into anything significant, and it also had some wind shear with it, which didn't allow it to develop. And as expected, nothing significant has come out of this area during the last few days. We do have a weak area over here in the eastern Pacific that may have to be watched for potential development over the next few days, though it will be slow to develop if it does at all. We have a tropical wave over here east of the Antilles Islands that will be moving west-northwestward through the Caribbean over the next several days. And the only feature that I can really see watching over the next few days is this feature right here in the intertropical convergence zone in the central Atlantic that will be following this tropical wave towards the Caribbean over the next several days. And this is an area that's indicating surface convergence or piling up of air near the ocean surface, which is being forced to rise, allowing these thunderstorms to develop here. And this area will be moving probably fairly close to the South American coastline, probably near Trinidad and Tobago in about 3 days, and then moving up into the Northwest Caribbean or Western Caribbean in days 6, 7, and 8, and we may have to watch this feature a little bit as it moves towards that direction, because this this upper trough here in the central Atlantic, will be stringing out a little bit of a tail down here into the Caribbean, which will be ventilating this area of the southeast Caribbean when this feature moves in, and will continue to ventilate it as it moves across the Caribbean. So we may have to watch this feature as it's got a little bit of defined vorticity, and as soon as it gains latitude, it may have time to do something while it is underneath that ridge. And here's the European Ensemble's day 9. I wanted to show you this is the 500 millibar mean of the ensemble mean. You can see the ridge is over here across the southern United States, and this is a little bit farther north than the ridge typically is at this time of year. Normally this 588 line here is down into the southern Caribbean, as this ridge is generally over this area, and the subtropical ridge generally provides a net area of sinking air that tends to limit thunderstorm activity early on in the hurricane season. When we see this ridge lift a little bit farther north than here, it signals to us that we may have to watch to the south of the ridge where upward motion is more allowed to see if some thunderstorm activity can't get going, and we might have a disturbance in there that could take advantage of that. So this is what the model is telling us, is to look down here just in case there is a disturbance that could take advantage of the opportunity to get going in the Caribbean within the next 10 days or so. This is the MJO forecast from the GFS ensembles starting now, going through the next 2 weeks, taking us through phase 1, octant 1, and on into phase 2 by the end of the period. This phase 1 brings upward motion to the Atlantic area, which favors tropical development, especially early in the season. And then we start moving on. Here's the UK Met showing the same kind of deal going into phase 2 by the very end. And then the European model takes us again through octant 1 and faster through phase 2 by the end of the period. And what this is telling us here is that conditions will continue to be favorable through at least the first half of the month, but during the latter third or latter week to 10 days of July, we may see the MJO leave us and allow sinking air to develop over the Atlantic and suppress tropical activity for the end of the month, meaning that if we don't get a named storm within the first half of the month, even if we get one, July will still probably be a fairly quiet month overall. Not going to see a lot of activity right through the end of the month if this MJO forecast comes true, and we may have to wait until August for our first real burst of activity for the season, which is not uncommon. And last year, remember, we did not have very much activity at all in June and July, and we still got a massive season with 19 named storms. So June and July don't generally tell us a whole lot in terms of what the meat of the season will do. So until we get to the peak of the hurricane season, we can't make any judgment calls on the overall activity. June and July are their own separate deal most of the time. They can have indicators for the meat of the season, but in general, they stand alone in a lot of respects. So we will continue to watch the Atlantic over the next several days. No immediate threats, no significant threats here, just tropical waves marching across. We will watch this area from the intertropical convergence zone to see if it tries to do anything in the Caribbean in the next several days. But except for that, there is not a whole lot to watch, and we will enjoy the quiet while it lasts. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.